This is a basil plant. Now, one of the most delicious herbs. It goes well on pizza, you can make pesto from it, but the problem is that when you buy store-bought basil, after a couple of days, maximum a week, we all know what it looks like. Now, there's a couple reasons for that, but in this video, I'm going to show you why that is and how I intend to solve it. Alright, so first things first, what's the problem? Well, you've got this giant plant, which is significantly larger than my face, and a tiny pot. You can see all the roots pushing through, trying to come out through the bottom. That's a clear sign that if you just wanted to replant this, you could do that, but you'd need to put it in a much bigger pot. And not only would you need to put it in a much bigger pot, check this out. Do you see how close together all of those basil plants are grouped to each other? It's hard to focus, but I'm sure you can make that out. What you'd need to do is separate this into multiple different plants. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to try something crazy. So let me show you how I'm going to literally clone this basil plant. Alright, so let's start with a little bit of plant anatomy. You see how it goes here? You've got leaves on top, and then lower down the stem, you've got a couple of other leaves growing. But the thing is that the growth hormone for the basil tends to want to go to the highest set of leaves. So once you have this set up here, this one down here is going to grow much slower. So what you want to do usually, if you want to make basil just grow, is you want to cut it right above one of these nodes, like there, see? And what that does is it basically says all the growth hormone goes up to here because the growth hormone tries to go to the top of the plant, and it's going to make these grow out. But if you look really closely, and I get my head out of the way so it can focus, you see that there's like two little baby plants growing, this one and this one. And what happens if you were to cut it like right here is that those two would end up making a new stem going in like a kind of Y configuration. But that's just what you do once you have big plants. I don't have a big plant yet. I want many huge plants. So instead of cutting it above here, what you want to do in order to make it grow roots is cut it right below. And what that's going to do is it's going to start making roots grow from underneath. So let's do that. All right, so let's get our cuttings and trim this boy down. All right, now that's looking much smaller, and that's looking pretty good to me. And over here, I've got all of the cuttings. Now you might be asking, how come I didn't take every single cutting I could? Like, there's still a decent amount of plant here. Well, the reason for that is that generally, when I take a cutting, you ideally want to have like the top note still and about 2 still more on the bottom. And this plant just isn't that big. So most of the ones I left only had like either a top level of leaves or 1 or 2 levels of leaves, and really you want to have 3 for the cloning process. What on earth do you do once you actually have these clippings? Well, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clean these up so that you only have the top layer of the leaves left, so that the roots are going to be incentivized to come out of the other 2 nodes. So let me show you an example of what that would look like. So we start at the bottom, and we've got all this stuff here, so clip that, and we've got these little leaves as well. Those little leaves also gotta go. So let's bid them farewell. All right, so that's the bottom part kind of cleaned up, but we've still got like 2 other nodes here, so let's clean those up as well. And so this is ideally what you want to be left with. You've got your top level of leaves, and underneath you've got 1 node here, and then you've got 1 more node at the bottom. And this, all you're gonna do with this is you're just gonna put it in some water. And there you go. Ideally, you want to get a glass that's more or less the size of whatever stem you've still got. But give this 8 days and it's going to look like this. All right, guys, so the cloning is in process. And yesterday, if I zoomed in on the roots, I only saw like really tiny ones on this plant. But as you can see today, it's giving off like tons of roots all over the place. And if I look at the other ones, like you're also starting to see roots growing there and everything. And let's see here as well, we've got some roots. And if you look at the top of these, for some reason they're bending like crazy. I'm gonna let these boys grow a little bit more, a couple more days, and then we're gonna transplant them into the soil. All right, guys, so it's now been 9 days, and as you can see, It's got tons of roots on all of them. And now is actually the right time to start putting them in the ground itself. So I'm waiting for the dirt to come. I'm gonna prep a bunch of containers, and then I'm gonna put these bad boys in the ground. Alright guys, so as you can hopefully see, we've got a bunch of roots growing. These plants have been here now, I think almost 2 weeks. I've been waiting for dirt. I've been waiting for my pots to arrive, which are these. So we're gonna take some of this dirt that I've got in these boxes, fill these containers up, and transplant these basil trees from the glass jars and the water into the dirt. Oh, this is cool. My dirt came with a bit of fertilizer with it. That's actually really great. Thanks a lot, guys. Alright guys, so I've prepared quite a few of these containers here. I don't know if I have enough yet for all of these basil plants, but it should be getting pretty close. And yeah, that's it. You're going to want to water them quite heavily after you put them in. So let me show you how I do that. Let me go ahead and, you know what? Before we do that, let me show you how you can tell that it's been way too long. If you look at these basil leaves, I'd actually cleaned them up a little bit already, but I forgot to change the water too fast. And they had like this white kind of lime scale growing on them, which is basically the salts from the water had started to come up through the plants, and the leaves were effectively like sweating them out. And that's basically what that white stuff is. So that's like high time to actually transplant them into the dirt. But alright, I mean, the actual transplanting process is pretty self-explanatory. You grab one of these basil plants and try to do it gently, because I think I have my roots kind of mixed up together. And as you can see, it's got like plenty of roots, it's like cute, it's happy. And just put this in one of the containers. So I'm gonna need to dig a little hole, and I'm just gonna kind of do this. Plop it in, and then, you know, make sure I'm covering it nicely. And this one's gonna need quite a bit more dirt. As you can see, there's quite a lot of roots still showing. So, you know, I'm just gonna add some more, and now I'm gonna do that for all of them, and enjoy the next montage. Alright guys, so the basic transplant is done. They're all kind of in their pots now. Now some of them, unfortunately, there wasn't enough dirt in there, and as you can still see a little bit of roots, so I'm going to add more dirt to all of them, and that's going to complete the transplanting. Now, you might be wondering, well, how many of these are actually going to survive this process, right? You're moving them from a water-based environment into a dirt-based environment, and I don't know if you've ever seen a fish out of the ocean, but they're not that happy. So these plants are going to show signs of suffering probably for like 1 or 2 or 3 days, but after that they should take the soil quite nicely, and as long as I keep them very, very well watered and in a shaded environment, because on top of that they were inside, so they're not going to be used to the full sun, and kind of like wean them into the sunny areas like slowly over time, they should pretty much all survive. Now there's one that I did hear a bit of a snap when I put it in, which is worrying, and that one might not make it, but all the others should have survived the transplanting process. So we'll check back in a day or two, and I just gotta add some more dirt to these guys and give them a good little watering. So I know that this corner here behind me is kind of the place of the balcony that gets the absolute least amount of sunlight every day. Considering that we're trying to ease them into the environment gently, we don't want to just blast them with full sun. So I'm gonna move them into this corner, I'm gonna water them, and we'll be back in a few days and see how they've grown. Alright guys, it's the next day and it's extremely bright outside, and as you can see, the basil plants, they're quite happy. They seem to be taking quite well to their new home. The leaves did look a little bit yellowish in the morning, but that's, I think, nothing to be too concerned about. I gave them some water, and I'm gonna make sure this dirt stays extra wet for a couple of days, like watering it until it's drenched twice a day, just so the roots can acclimate a little bit, because they're used to being in 100% water. So let's check back in a couple of days and see how these guys grow. Alright guys, so after burning my eyes getting the thumbnail, hope you guys appreciated it. I've got all of this basil here, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to prune it, and I'm going to show you exactly how I want to do that. And that's gonna be it. The next time it grows out is probably gonna be the last clip of this video. So like I explained before, these are kind of the original plants, and these are all of the clones that I made, and I haven't cut these at all yet. But they've been in the dirt for a while now. They've grown enough that I can like prune them. So the idea is, if you take one of these, right? You see that it's got kind of like two really little leaves over there that are trying to grow, but they won't, because with basil, all the growth hormone goes to the top. So if I were to cut all the way down to here, those two are going to come out, make like a fork, and this is going to start bushing out the more I do that. So I've already done that once with this guy. I'm just going to go ahead and do that with everything, and then the next time you hear from me, we're going to see how much bushier all this got. So here I've got an absolutely perfect example for you guys. As you can see exactly where I snipped it. There's two really tiny ones growing right on the sides of that. So those two are going to come out and become like huge leaves themselves, and then you can keep doing that really infinitely to get it like the fork, I don't know, a bunch of times. So now basically I just need to keep pruning these two, and that's it for today. Alright guys, so as you saw in the cloning, we had a bunch of little basils that were growing, and what I've basically done is I've put them all together in pots, and let me show you what that looks like. So we've got this guy over here, which if you look closely, you can see this is one of the clones. See, it's all alone, and this one is also one of the clones. See, it's also all alone, and those two are looking real good, and these are kind of from the original plant still. I kind of split them into two clumps, and yeah, it's growing all right. I had to add some fertilizer today. Then what else we've got? We've got these, which are only from the cloned ones, and as you can see, those stems are thick. They're growing super well. You can see the beautiful forking over here, and right here we've just got 4 little basils. Now I'm probably going to consider chopping the bottom leaves at some point because they keep touching the ground. As you can see right there, it's got some dirt on it, and that's just not really ideal. If we keep going to the next one, then this is also from the original pot. And there we go. Like, as you can see, the basil, after cloning it and pruning it, it's just given me like so much additional basil. Now, I forgot about this one too. Here's another one that I've got. See, I've just got basil growing absolutely everywhere. And realistically, I have enough to make a whole pesto sauce once a week now, and it's absolutely delicious.
In my veins, I've been driving this train, years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame, cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain.
And there you have it, a delicious basil pesto. And I'm telling you guys, this stuff is worth growing it yourself. It is so fresh, so delicious. You'll never have pesto like this. So you know, if you're a normal human being, you absolutely love pesto. So I would really recommend just going ahead and cloning this. And you might be wondering why I've still got these 3 out here. Well, in an upcoming video, I'm going to be doing something called companion planting. So there's some plants which really benefit from being potted together and growing in the same space. So I've got here a bunch of tomato plants, and what I'm going to do is in these tomato containers, I'm going to plop this basil in there, and we're going to see how it affects it, if they're both happy growing together, which they should be, and apparently they don't compete for nutrients or anything like that. So yeah. Guys, if you want unlimited basil, just go ahead and clone as much as you want. Like, if I wanted another pot, I could just do the process again, and in 10 days I'd have even more basil. So stay tuned if you're curious about the companion planting video.